Now, if you were designing a car to sell in the UK right now, it would probably be three things. It would probably be a small SUV, it would probably be electric, and it would certainly help if it undercut all of the competition on price as well. Now, the car I'm driving today, the new MG ZS Electric, is all of those things. So in theory, at least, it could be quite a big hit. In this video, we're going to be finding out if it makes as much sense in reality as it does on paper. But before we get started, if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure you do so and don't forget to turn on notifications, because otherwise we can't let you know about some really exciting videos we've got coming up over the next few weeks. Also remember that if you're looking to buy a new car, we can potentially help you get a great discount on the brochure price without you needing to worry about haggling with the dealer at all. For more information on that, click the link up there at the top of the screen or head over to our website whatcar.com and look at the new car buying section. Now, as many of you will know, MG started life making sports cars back in the 1920s, and after several different owners during the next 80 odd years, ended up as part of the Rover Group that famously went bust in 2005. But then just when it looked like that was the end for the once famous British brand, a Chinese company stepped in and bought MG before setting to work building budget-focused models, starting with the 6 and 3 hatchbacks before moving into the SUV market with the GS. And most recently in 2017 came the smaller ZS, MG's best effort yet under its new Chinese ownership. So unsurprisingly, that's the car the brand has chosen as a basis for its first pure electric model. Now, before we get onto the range and the charging and all that sort of stuff, it's probably worth us looking at some of the bits this electric version of the ZS shares with the regular petrol model. And one of those is this pretty smart interior, actually. I mean, there's lots of squidgy plastic up here on the dashboard, the buttons and the dials, they all feel quite nice and weighty. And actually, it all feels pretty well put together as well. But there are some things in here that look rather familiar, and it isn't because they're found on other MG models. I mean, these air vents, for example, they look almost identical to what you'll find on an Audi A3, as does the design of this door handle here and the locking switches, and even the arrangement of the handbrake switches on the center console. But then again, I suppose if you are going to, shall we say, take inspiration from any other manufacturer when it comes to designing your interiors, then it may as well be Audi, because generally speaking, it's the best in the business. There are of course a few bits that are bespoke to the electric version though, and one of those is this drive mode selector here. You have got reverse, neutral and drive, and you've also got the park button on the top there. You also have a drive mode button here, and what that allows you to do is cycle between eco, normal and sport. The real difference there is how quickly the accelerator responds to presses. So in eco mode, you need to push it quite far down to get any real quick acceleration, whereas in sport mode it's much sharper. And if you're an F1 fan, you'll probably recognize this KERS button down here. What that does is alter the level of regeneration. That's the amount of energy that's fed back into the battery when you slow down. In its most extreme setting, you do find yourself slowing down quite quickly, so you don't really need to use the brake pedal much at all. And the final button on here is called battery, and all that does is when you press it, shows how much range the car thinks it has left. The driving position, well, that's mostly good as well, actually. You sit a little bit further from the road than you do in a regular hatchback or even something like a Kia e-Niro. But the only thing that is quite annoying is that the steering wheel, it moves up and down, but it doesn't move in and out. And that means that I'm having to sit a little bit further towards the pedals than I'd ideally like to. The infotainment system has plenty of features. You get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring as standard, along with a DAB radio. But the 8-inch touchscreen is sometimes quite slow to respond when you press it. It's almost as though you're trying to run the latest version of Apple's iOS on a Nokia 3210. Now, the ZS is about the same size as the Dacia Duster, but actually it's quite a bit bigger than that car in the back. The seat in front is set up for my driving position. I'm just over 6 foot, and look, I've got loads of legroom left over. Headroom is acceptable rather than brilliant. But then again, this car does have the panoramic sunroof that only comes on the range-topping exclusive model, so you'll probably get a bit more headroom if you stick with the entry-level Excite. And actually, it's pretty good for sitting 3 people side by side, because there's barely any hump here on the floor, so I can put my feet somewhere. With the rear seats up, boot space is actually fractionally better than in the petrol version of the ZS. But because the battery is located under the rear seats, there is a slightly bigger step up when you fold the seat backs down. Even so though, the ZS EV can swallow roughly the same amount of luggage as the Kia e-Niro. But let's move on to some of the areas this electric version really differs from the regular MG ZS. And one of those is, fairly obviously, the fact you need to charge it up. You can do that with a regular Type 2 charging cable, and if you do this at home using the 7 kilowatt wall box that MG offers to install free of charge for any ZS EV buyer, a full charge, that's from 0 to 100%, will take roughly 6.5 hours. Charging rates of up to 50 kilowatts are possible by using a public CCS charger, and if you plug into one of these, a 0 to 80% charge takes roughly 40 minutes. Now the ZS has a 44.5 kilowatt hour battery. MG's been very specific there. So that's a little bit bigger than the battery you get in an entry-level Nissan Leaf or a Hyundai Kona electric, but it's quite a lot smaller than the battery that a Kia e-Niro has, for example. Now what that means is that the range between charges isn't anything particularly special compared with the latest electric cars. It's 163 miles according to the WLTP tests. So if you regularly do long journeys, especially on the motorway, then the ZS probably isn't the car for you. But let's face it, the vast majority of people do commutes of less than 40 miles a day. So if that's you, you're going to have absolutely no problem with the range of this car, particularly if you drive around town. And that's even taking into account the fact that the real-world range of electric cars is generally a little bit less than the official figures suggest. We actually do our own independent range tests to give you a better idea of how many miles you can expect from your electric car while driving gently, but not unrealistically slowly or switching off the air conditioning. We'll be putting the ZS EV through this test in the coming months, but to find out the real range for any other electric car, just click up there at the top of the screen or Google real range. In other respects, the ZS EV is decent enough to drive rather than brilliant. On this early test, we didn't have a chance to take it out of London, but in urban environments it's easy enough to manoeuvre. You can definitely feel the extra weight of the batteries, around about 1/4 of a tonne, over the petrol version of the ZS, but then agile handling isn't really what a family SUV is all about. Now, one of the weakest areas of the regular petrol MG ZS is its performance. But this car is much quicker. It has an electric motor that pumps out around about 140 brake horsepower, not as much as cars like the Kia e-Niro or the Kona electric, but then again it's much cheaper, and 0 to 60 still takes around about 8.5 seconds. Now, another one of our complaints about the regular petrol ZS has always been its ride. It's fairly firm at low speeds, but also when you get out of town a bit on undulating roads, you get quite a lot of body bounce, you don't get a huge amount of control, and really other budget SUVs like the Dacia Duster, for example, are altogether more comfortable. But the good news is this electric version is certainly no worse. In fact, if anything, I'd say it's slightly better, probably because the weight of that battery over the rear end has helped calm things down a little bit. And actually, this electric version isn't really up against cars like the Duster. Its rivals are the Kona electric, which is fairly firm at low speeds as well. And even the Kia e-Niro, well, it's better, but it's far from perfect. So ride comfort certainly isn't a reason for not going for this car. Another thing that's actually really impressed me about this car are the brakes, because in a lot of electric cars you get this quite inconsistent brake pedal feel, and that makes it quite difficult to slow down smoothly, and it's because of the regeneration effects that are going on when you slow down. But in this car, I haven't once today felt that I've misjudged how much pressure to apply to the pedal. So in that respect, it's one of the very best EVs, and considering the price point particularly, MG's done a really good job there. Undoubtedly the most appealing thing about the new ZS EV though is its price. Right now it costs from as little as £21,495, thanks partly to the £3,500 grant you get from the government when buying any EV, but also a further £3,500 saving that MG is offering on the first 1,000 retail orders. The range-topping exclusive model adds a couple of thousand to that bill, but brings heated door mirrors, man-made leather seats, heated front seats with electric adjustment for the driver, an opening panoramic sunroof, a more powerful stereo and a reversing camera. Plus you also get blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert, the latter of which warns you about approaching cars when you're backing out onto a busy road. For some context, if you were to join the roughly year-long waiting list for a Kia e-Niro, brilliant though it is, you'd be relieved of around about £33,000 after grants. Even the cheapest Kona electric costs $27,250. But would that bargain price tag be enough to make you choose a ZS EV? Let us know which car you'd buy by voting in our poll. The ZS EV, the Hyundai Kona electric, the Kia e-Niro, or would you actually go down the petrol route instead and buy a Seat Ateca? Now, if you are interested in the new ZS EV, you can put down a fully refundable deposit on MG's website right now. First deliveries are expected in September, although because supply is fairly limited, initially at least, we wouldn't recommend hanging around too long, or you could find yourself in a fairly long waiting list. Thanks for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video then give us a thumbs up, and as I've already said, if you're not subscribed to our channel, make sure you do that, because we've got loads of cool videos coming up over the next few weeks and we want to make sure that we can let you know as soon as they go live. Finally, if you're in the market for any new car, make sure you head over to our website whatcar.com to find out how much you could save, and other than that, we'll see you next time.